So hi there everyone, here we are again for another episode of Tuesday Talks, and it's on location again. So we are at the Wadsworth Police Station, and with me my guest today is Chief Dan Chafin. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Meru. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, and we always love working with you guys, and we want to get to know you.
Absolutely.
We want to get to know what you do at Wadsworth Police. But before we start that, we got you know the routine when it comes to the Tuesday Talks. We ask you the question from the person before you. We'll ask you 3 questions, and then you'll have a question for the person we're interviewing after
Fantastic.
you. All right? So, Chief, first question. This came from Nick Johnson from Tortoise Space, which is a photography company we use. Yes. What would you rather, win the lottery or work your perfect job?
That's a great question. That's a very good question. I can see the advantages to both for sure. I think just because work is so important in your day-to-day life and how it impacts those around you, be very easy, especially on a Friday afternoon at the end of the work week, with the weather that we have today outside, that the lottery would be a really easy question. But I love work. It's a big part of my life, and I think having that perfect job, knowing that you're doing something that matters and feeling really good about the work that you do, I think that's also really important. So I think if people know me, they probably would be surprised to know that I'm still going to default to work, and I'm gonna pick the perfect job.
Okay, all right, there you have it. The chief would prefer the perfect job, and I think maybe he's in that perfect job already. So, first question, tell us about your experience at the Wadsworth Police Department prior to being chief.
Good question. So I was lucky enough to start here in February of 2010. And at that point in time, I didn't have any experience. I didn't have the academy. So my very first step in becoming a police officer was going down to the Ohio State Highway Patrol Basic Police Academy. I spent about 4 months there. Really great training, really great trainers. And I think that sort of set the stage for the rest of my career here. When I got done with that, I came back, was in patrol. And then in 2016, got promoted to the position of sergeant. Worked a couple years on the road as a first line supervisor on second shift. And then in 2019, that's when I got to come up for, I guess what I refer to as my dream job as the supervisor of the Detective Bureau, working on those more serious investigations for the department. Really, really enjoyed that time. And then in spring of 21, they had the promotional opportunity for the position of chief. Obviously engaged in that, and then in May of 21, that's when I started in my current position as chief.
Well, May 21, nice, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think you're enjoying it so far?
I am, yes.
Loving Wadsworth
Yes.
Police Department, that's right. But, tell us about the various roles and functions within the police department.
Yeah, I love it. We have so many here, and I think people just, they look at the police department as a whole. You see the cruisers, you see the men and women out there, you just assume that is the day-to-day function. And there's really a lot that goes on here. So like I mentioned, you have patrol. So those are going to be the men and women that you see day to day. They're going to be making those traffic stops, doing the area patrols, the extra follow-up. And they're really that first line of when you dial 911, those are the men and women that are going to come lights and sirens to help you, your family, your business. And then we have the Detective Bureau, which I mentioned earlier. So we've got 3 detectives. We've got 2 detectives and a supervisor in the Detective Bureau. And they're going to take our more serious felony cases. Cases involving children, the more serious long-term investigations that may take us outside of the city, and they do a phenomenal job up there, but definitely a specialty group within our agency. We've got 2 SROs. We've got one at the high school and then one that floats between the middle schools and all the elementaries. So we've got that specialty assignment as well. But then within all of those, we've got men and women that are our defensive tactics trainers, taser instructors, firearms instructors. We've got officers that are DREs, drug recognition experts. So they're essentially experts in the OVI field. Not only can they detect OVIs when you've got alcohol involved, but people that are driving under the influence of other narcotics, marijuana, prescription medications. So that's a great resource for us. We've got bike patrol. We've got a canine. So there are a number of things. Again, you might just see and think of the police department as one operation, but within that, we've got a lot of subject matter experts and just some really talented people that are doing great things for us as an agency.
There's a lot of behind the scenes
Lot of
happening
behind
that
the scenes,
we wouldn't see.
Even social media. We've got a group of officers that are handling our Facebook page, Instagram, things like that, and that's such a great way for us to be able to communicate and interact with the community. If we didn't have those officers in those positions, those things wouldn't happen. And then I'd also be remiss is that we have dispatch. So we've got 911 dispatchers. They're downstairs right now. Those are the men and women that are answering those 911 calls. They're the ones that are giving life support instructions over the phone. They're the ones that are telling us exactly where we need to go and what we're looking for when we get there. Without them, I mean, they're really a true first responder, because if no one answers that call, we don't go.
Right.
And if we don't get the right information off of that call, we walk into a situation that we don't understand, or we're already behind the 8 ball. So again, within that group right there, a lot happens from day to day, and it can go from 0 to 60 in a matter of seconds. And again, just another layer of the operation that's here.
I know. I mean, you make those phone calls. When I call the police station, I mean, they're so courteous. They're really a nice bunch of people out there. Not just the 911, but anybody you call here. They always, you can see that they're well trained. But that brings us to, you just brought up the social media thing. Maybe the third question will give us more depth into that. What do you think makes the Wadsworth Police Department unique or special?
100%, without a doubt, the people that are here. When I get to tell anybody about the Wadsworth Police Department, what I always say is that you need to realize that the group of officers that work here in the community, they're the ones that are special. I touched on some of these points before, so we'll use the SROs for example. They are actively engaged in the schools. They are coordinating between job and family services and other support networks in the community and counselors, and they legitimately care for the kids in those schools. And so when they're thinking about security threats, they're thinking about it just like they were their own kids.
Yeah.
When they're thinking about trying to help those families, they're thinking about it like it's their own family. Our detective bureau, they are working on and solving cases that I don't know that other agencies would. I mean, they are really talented and for different reasons, but they push and push and push until they can get the results that they need to take and present to the prosecutor's office and get the ultimate resolution in those cases. But then our patrol officers, again, it's that same mindset of they care for the community. A lot of them live in the community. When they're going to those calls, they legitimately want to have a positive outcome. Now, the calls that they go to and the circumstances that they find themselves in, sometimes they're very difficult circumstances, but they go in there with that mindset that they want to help solve issues in the community. And I don't think you get that everywhere. I certainly don't want to speak ill of any other department that's out there, but I just know the hearts and minds of the people that work here, and that's what sets us apart. That's what makes us different. I mentioned trainers before. We've got some true subject matter experts in here that when we're doing training at the department, it's at a very high level. It really is, and that training makes a difference, whether it's a field training officer with a new officer, whether it's a firearms instructor, a DT instructor. You can't have a standard in your organization or in your business if you don't provide people the tools to reach that standard, and so they play such a critical role in that. So far and away, 100%, the thing that sets the Wadsworth Police Department from others is the people.
I do see it being here involved in the community as a business owner. The officers are involved. They're always involved. You know them. They know you. It is really that community style that you really want for a community like this.
And we're lucky that we have the community that we do, because that's something else that's unique for us is we have a supportive community. If you drive around the community, you see the "We Support the Police" signs. People will stop in the summertime and drop off Gatorade, or people will just randomly on a Friday drop off cookies or donuts, or they support the men and women that do that. And so I think we have a really unique situation here
of course,
that we certainly take seriously and appreciate. So it is nice to have that support.
Yeah, of course, definitely. I would not, I know we usually do 3 questions, but I want to ask you, and it's my passion for safety and realtor safety in our business, real estate. What do you think some advice you can give realtors that are out there showing houses? What are some safety advice you can give to them? And maybe some homeowners that have their house on the market.
Great. Yeah, I've had my house for sale before too. And so it's interesting when you've got complete strangers that are walking through your house and taking a look at it. And that's obviously a necessary part of the process.
Yeah.
But really it's just a common sense approach from a homeowner's perspective. you may have valuables in your house. You may have things like firearms in your house. Secure those things or take them off to another site, another location. The realtors that we've used before, they've always communicated when those were going to be. Occasionally you have one that's sort of last minute, but as you're staging your house for having people come through, make that a part of your staging process and say, hey, do I have valuables that are out that don't need to be out? Do I have things in my house that I want to protect? Well, a really easy way is just to take them out of your house completely. Maybe you've got family nearby or a friend nearby that you can stow those with, or you've got a way to secure those, whether it's a safe inside your home or even in your vehicle while you're going to be out of your house, assuming you're going to stay with it.
Yeah.
From a realtor's perspective, again, kind of that common sense approach. So when we work in the detective bureau and we're going out into other communities and we're taking trips, somebody always knows where we are. What connects the officers and what keeps them safe on the road is that connection to dispatch. Hey, Meru, how you doing? It's that we call it an officer checkup, but knowing that, hey, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend, whether it's other agents inside your office, just saying, hey, you guys know my schedule, you know where I'm going to be, and maybe a real simple thing to do is just have that follow-up text, hey, showing went well, thanks, or showing didn't go so well, or showing's done, whatever you want to say, but that communication, right? That communication for us as officers is our lifeline.
Yeah.
There's no reason that you can't apply those same principles in real estate. And also, just trust your gut. I tell people that all the time. If you feel like you're uncomfortable in a situation, we get caught up in social norms of, I don't want to be rude to someone. I would hate to hurt this person's feelings. You have your gut for a reason. And if something doesn't feel right, maybe it is. So having that backup plan of saying, hey, I'm not so sure about this next showing. Would it be all right if I texted you and said, hey, I don't feel comfortable when I get there, and maybe you can provide an excuse and say, hey, something's come up, I've got to leave, or worst case scenario, take somebody else with you. When we go to a house or a call that we know might not be the safest, we don't go by ourselves.
Right.
We take people with us. So again, having those lines of communication and then trusting your gut. Don't put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. If you know it's uncomfortable, you probably feel that for a reason. Trust your gut and don't go. Or have a backup plan in place to say, hey, maybe two of us go. Or, hey, I've got you on text, and I can just say, hey, this is getting weird. Maybe you're nearby and you could show up and just check in and say, hey, just checking in to see how it's going. Or say, hey, I've got a really important phone call, family emergency, whatever you want to make up to provide for the excuse, but trust your gut, use that common sense, and just be smart about things.
Yeah, that's really, really great advice. That's what we teach you guys in terms of if you're putting your house on the market or the realtors. We try to teach them these things, and I love that it's coming from you, the expert in that field. Chief, that's the questions we have for you. But before we leave, you would have a question for the person we're interviewing next.
Sure. So I'm going to take a feed off of Judge McIlvain. He was talking about music when I watched his interview. Didn't know he was a fan of Diana Ross and the Supremes. I learned something as well too. But I also love music, so my question for the next person would be, what's your favorite genre of music? But then specifically, who's your favorite artist of all time?
Oh wow, that's a really good question that you may have to think deep like I would, or it may just be the year 2000, who knows? So that's your question for the next person. Chief, thank you so much for doing this with us. We really enjoyed meeting you, getting to know you, and the people out there are going to get to know you even more.
Thank you, Meru. It's very much appreciated.
And I just have to say, we do appreciate all that you do in Wadsworth, all your officers and all the supporting staff that you have.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Guys, that's our episode of Tuesday Talks for today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to answer them for you. And don't forget, if you're serious about real estate, we're serious about you. Bye for now.